Let's say that I overeat and I feel stuffed afterwards and I feel sick and I did it again and again. Why am I doing that really?
The guilt and the shame and all of that keep continuing because you don't have confidence that you will not repeat that mistake.
We have to go back and say, what is it that I'm actually genuinely lacking and needing, and shine a light on it? Is it that I didn't get love when I was younger? What is going on, right?
And temporarily we take on these very negative patterns of being and doing, but eternally we are these pure, innocent beings.
Lots of love and welcome to Spiritual Sense. I'm Michael McIntosh and I'm here with Sister Shireen, and we are spiritual teachers with about 55 years experience, and it's our great joy to connect with you today. So we're talking about shame, a very nice light-hearted topic, guilt and shame. Oh gosh, how are you doing, Sister Shireen?
It's a wonderful topic. Thank you. Thank you. I'm doing very well.
You know, there's a book called Healing the Shame That Binds You. It's a great book, by the way, by John Bradshaw. And shame is such a big topic because it can change our sense of identity, and it can make us feel on a very, very deep level there's something horribly wrong with us as beings, which then makes us feel so bad we might end up doing more bad things, right? So it's a very toxic emotion that we need to get over. And guilt also is a very heavy energy. So someone who's in guilt and shame and stuck in it, it can completely wreck their life and it can lead to further problems. So we really need to turn this around.
Absolutely. You know, I was recently talking to someone, and she was saying her ex-husband, and she was saying that he was really not an alcoholic, but he did a couple of things, and because of his guilt, he became an alcoholic. And so, really, these emotions can totally, totally wreck your life and make you do worse things, like you're saying, make you do worse things.
They're so heavy, guilt and shame, that they can make us want to avoid the feeling it by any means necessary. And that might mean becoming alcoholic or becoming addicted to something else or eating too much or whatever, right? So what causes guilt and shame? What can we do about it? And how can we completely clear this out so we are no longer under that negative energy spell? That's what we're diving into today.
It is a light
Very
topic.
light-hearted topic. You know, I think all of us in one way or another have made mistakes in our life. And when we make a mistake, there's something called healthy shame, where we feel bad about something we did, and that's a sign that we have a conscience. You know, so let's say I said something nasty to somebody and I hurt their feelings, right? I should feel bad about that, and I should learn to not do that again as best I can, right? Or I might eat too much food and I feel bad about it, and I should. So we do things, and if we have a negative response, we can then learn from that. And then we can adjust our behavior and we can move on, right? And there's no need for guilt and shame. That's like the shame did its job and now we've moved on with our life. But toxic shame is where we do something wrong and then we feel that we are fundamentally flawed. That instead of being a divine being who made a mistake, we now think of ourselves as a awful being who deserves to be punished. And I think that's a very dark place to be living from, isn't it?
It is. It is. What about things like, okay, I said something nasty to someone, right? It's not on a scale of 1 to 10 of bad behaviors, it's not that bad. I think abusing children, I think that's way up there, right? And, and I know people who go to Thailand and, whatever, right? And they think it's okay to
We're not going to get into that.
do
Yeah.
whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't get into the details of it.
Yeah.
But what about them? I mean, are we just going to say, "Oh, I'm feeling bad. I'm going to forgive myself," and then they just keep doing the same behavior? What about them?
So let's just take this step by step, right? So why do we do anything wrong in the first place, right? When we look at our life, the reason I've made any mistakes or done anything bad, negative, when we say bad, it's not a moral thing. There's just certain actions have negative consequences and certain other actions have positive consequences. So this whole right and wrong thing is not the best way of thinking about it. It's more like I do something that has a bad consequence on myself and other people and in the world, and I do something else that has a positive consequence. So when we do something that has a negative consequence, we should feel bad about that. We should have some response, recognizing that we went off track. And if we recognize it, we can then bring it back. Okay, that's the ideal situation. Like we get a bit off track and we come back again, and we learn the lesson. But when you step back even further, why do we do things that are off in the first place? Sometimes we're ignorant, right? We just don't know, and we make a mistake like innocently. But things like what you're talking about, or let's say, that's an extreme example, right? Someone who's up to all sorts of stuff in Thailand, let's say, or Las Vegas or whatever. Let's say that I overeat, right? Because and I feel stuffed afterwards, and I feel sick, and I did it again and again. Why am I doing that, really? If you go back in time, what we'll find is that these these behaviors that are coping mechanisms, what they are is some sort of lack. The soul is lacking something. The soul is weak. Internally, I'm needing something. I'm wanting something. There's like this big hole, basically, right? And when there's a big emotional, spiritual hole, we will do all kinds of things to try and fill the hole up. And that's why drugs and alcohol and entertainment and even the sexual things and whatever else, people are trying to fill a hole. And unless that hole is filled up with the right stuff, with divine energy and with peace and love, it's still there, and people are going to keep acting out. And the more they act out, the more they end up doing things that are more harmful, more harmful, more harmful. And then the heaviness of the guilt and shame gets more and more extreme. And then there's more and more need to cope. So this is a very, very dark situation that is taking over a large percentage of the world right now. And what religion tends to teach people is that not all religions, but some views on guilt are that if you feel guilty long enough, somehow you will appease God. Like if I just like wallow in guilt for 5 years, then somehow God will be happy with me at the end, which is a very weird way of thinking. So it's like if I punish myself with more negative feelings, so I did something wrong, and now I'm going to beat myself up around the head about it for years and years and years, and hopefully, after enough bashing myself and hating myself, then I'll come out the other end better off. Do you think that's a good method, Shireen?
I don't know what a good method is. That's definitely not a good method because that's not what God wants you to do. But definitely, the method is not going back and doing it again and again. So how do you? I'm especially talking about major heavy things, right? How do you stop? Because I feel what happens is the guilt and the shame and all of that keep continuing because you don't have confidence that you will not repeat that mistake. So, the most important thing is that we don't repeat that, right? Am I strong enough to not repeat that thing? And if I'm strong enough not to repeat that thing, then I will not feel guilty. I need to learn to be strong. And learn to be strong, really, there's only one method, is you consider yourself to be a soul and remember the Supreme Soul, and you get that power to not repeat that mistake. but also to go back and see why you did it, like you were saying, right? Why did you do it? What was the need? Fulfill that need spiritually, all of those things.
Right.
But if I keep repeating the mistake, it doesn't matter if I'm feeling guilty for 10 years, it's not going to make a difference. First, don't involve God in this, right? Take God out of the equation. So you first take God out of the equation, and then just look at yourself and see, are you going to repeat it?
That's right. So I think a lot of people, including myself, if I think back to my own life, might have done something wrong and said to myself, I'm never going to do it again, and then did it anyway, right? Because the underlying issue hasn't been dealt with. So I can say I'm never going to do it again. I mean, how many alcoholics have said, I'm never drinking again, I shouldn't do it, and the next day they drink. So just trying to have willpower and say I'm not going to do it doesn't work for most people, because the heavy energy is so extreme, and there's such a big need there, such a big gap, such a big hole, that whatever we say in our head's not really going to come about. So we have to go back and say, what is it that I'm actually genuinely lacking and needing, and shine a light on it. Is it that I didn't get love when I was younger? Is it that I didn't get encouragement? What is going on, right? We need to know, go back, because this is the behavior over here, the bad behavior, right? Which that's shameful behavior, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that. Okay, fair enough. But you go back. What is causing that behavior, right? And that's worth just exploring, right? What do you really need? What do you really want? It takes a while just to sit back and think, what has happened in my life that I'm trying to work out through behaving in these weird ways. And once you have a better sense of what that is, so oftentimes it's people were abused when they were younger, or something bad happened to them when they were younger, and they're sort of acting out some version of that later on in life because it was unresolved trauma that happened over here, and it just keeps repeating itself. And they might say, I'm not going to do it, not going to do it, not going to do it, but it comes back to there, so they can't really just stop doing it. So you go back and say, okay, how can I deal with that trauma, and how can I resolve the issues at that level? And the only way to resolve those issues really is to go back even before it happened, which is what these spiritual practices are that we're teaching, is to go back in time before anything bad ever happened to you, before you did anything wrong yourself or anything bad happened to you by anyone else. And when we go all the way back in time into the place before any negativity at all, then we can experience our identity as pure, and then we can experience freedom from all of these negative feelings. Then we can get power, and then we can change our self-image of who we really are. And then we can start to feel whatever it is that we need filling in. And as we start to fill that in more and more and more and more, then the trauma is healed. And then because the trauma starts to get healed, the behavior that's caused by the trauma doesn't have to keep happening, right? So we have to go back in time, basically. This is why so many people who try and stop things just fail miserably, because you can't just stop, because it's caused by something that's way back here, and you have to go back. So one of the first things to do is to say, you're not a bad person, you're not an evil person. You might be doing evil things, potentially, right? We have to separate the sin from the sinner, is how there's a one way of saying it. Like, if we might do something wrong, we shouldn't be doing that, fair enough. But who we are fundamentally is good souls. So we have to separate these two things out and go back, and start to reinforce our pure identity, and start to find healthy ways of getting the love and the peace and the whatever we need again and again and again and again, so that there's no interest in all this bizarre behavior that's happening over there. Does that make sense?
It does. And I like what you're sharing about how, right? Don't dwell on the why. Richard
Yeah.
Bandler's, the book you asked me to read, Transformation, he keeps talking about this. How? How do you get rid of it? If we keep thinking, oh, I was abused as a child, I didn't get love, and so I'm doing this. And so you keep going into the why, right? Most therapists really just take you into the why. Why is not going to be very helpful. And like you're saying, the how needs to be addressed. How do I get rid of this behavior? And I like what you're sharing is to go back to a time, right? We are all, at some point, pure, innocent beings. Nothing bad ever happened to us. We didn't do anything bad. And we are beautiful beings. And you could say that eternally we are those. And temporarily we take on these very negative patterns of being and doing, but eternally we are these pure, innocent beings beyond this negative construct that is going on, right? Eternally we are pure, peaceful, innocent beings. And to keep going back to that time, that you're a soul, you're eternal, you're a pure soul, and eternally you're a pure soul.
Yeah, this really the only way to heal the shame and guilt is to do that ultimately. So the interest has to be there at the beginning. We have to say, I don't want to keep doing silly things that are harmful to me and other people. A desire. I acknowledge I got a problem and I need to do something about it. That's the first step, because if we haven't done that, we're not going to do anything else. Once we've made that decision, then second step is to look at what is this trauma, what are the needs that I'm needing, what is it that I need, so we at least know what it is. We don't need to know the details of all the trauma, right? Like, oh, so-and-so did this to me when I was 3 years old. And blah. I mean, because I'm a spiritual life coach, so I've heard all sorts of stories from people with, I mean, it's actually shocking. I think it's 1/3 of all American women have been sexually abused, apparently. I mean, this is a shocking statistics, right? So, as children. So, you just think, so everyone's like messed up because of something, right? Okay, fair enough. It's really unfortunate, but you can't change the past. But we need to say, okay, what is the need that was unmet at an earlier stage in my life? And at least write it down so you have a better sense of what it is. It might take time. You might just have to lie down and just think about this stuff. It's very healing. Just put some nice music on and just be open to receive guidance and ideas from yourself or higher power, and to write down what the needs are. And then use the spiritual methods that we teach here. We have so many methods to go back beyond time and have the divine send you beautiful energy down into your heart to fill in those needs, and to do that long enough for you to feel it in your heart, right? And once we start to to feel that those spiritual needs that we have are being met, then that trauma is healed, and then our interest in these bad behaviors, unhealthy behaviors, just would kind of dissolve by themselves. And the other thing is that is very important is to have good company, right? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Good company. Well, that's a big thing, right? It is good. It is important. And, not to go back to bad behaviors.
Right. We're not done with that yet.
I need to...
She's not.
not to
We're
go
not
back
allowed
to it,
to
but
let off these people in Thailand. No, they need to be. So, carry on. I'm just...
No. What I've noticed is that let's take Thailand. You brought up the topic, by the way. I wasn't even going to go there, but I was going to say that take to Thailand. Let's talk Thailand. That the people who go there, they go in a group. They do things in a group, right? They do, like, the company they keep kind of facilitates whatever is going on. right? Wherever. I've seen people go several places, even Vegas or, Colombia, wherever they're going, right? And so there is this, a lot of things are going on because of the company they keep. And so, if you want to change certain behaviors, then you shouldn't hang out with, like, let's say you're an alcoholic and you're a recovering alcoholic and you've decided you don't want to drink alcohol, you're not going to go into a bar, right? Because that's the atmosphere and the people and everything will change the way you feel about alcohol. And you'll think, oh, I'll just have one drink. And then before you know it, it's, one too many, thousand not enough, right? And so, in the same way, the company we keep about these things, about guilt and shame, if you really are serious about getting rid of it, not just of punishing ourselves. First thing, like you said, no, they shouldn't be any kind of, we shouldn't really get into the mode of self-punishment. So if we want to really get rid of this, then we have to change the company we keep.
Absolutely.
We need to keep good company.
Yeah, we need to keep the company of people who are spiritual, who do the work on themselves, who are looking at themselves, who are getting their needs met in a healthy way, because then we'll pick that up. Whereas if we're in the company of people who are acting out all the sort of unhealthy behaviors that we are struggling with, then we're just going to keep doing it, and it becomes normalized in that group as well.
Yes, certain things really become normalized, right? In groups, like there's a group think, and in the group think there's no, like, almost like you're giving up your choices because you're going into this group think, and then there's no choice. You do that, but before we do that, then we come back out of that group think, and then we feel guilty individually, or we feel shame. But actually, the group made us do certain things, and so we have to change that.
It's true, yeah. A lot of people do. It's called the madness of crowds. The bigger the group, the more crazy stuff can happen, because you just think, well, everyone else is doing it. What's wrong with that? So the real sign of change is that we are committing ourselves to act differently, right? So if we have guilt, the only way that we can resolve that is to say, I'm going to change. And when we do change, then the guilt goes away. And the guilt won't go away and the shame won't go away until we actually finally change. And it's good that it doesn't go away, because it's trying to prompt us. Guilt and shame is trying to say to us, look at this stuff and deal with it. Look at it and deal with it. Look at it and deal with it. And when we do, it goes away. And until then, it's going to keep rearing its ugly head and wrecking our life. So remorse means change. Remorse means change. So have good company, find out what the real needs are, and don't worry too much about the level of what the trauma was and why it happened, because that can go on and on forever. But find out what you need, and then realize that you are separate from the negativity. Whatever you've done wrong in your life, okay, fair enough, but you're still a good soul behind all of that. Go back in time to a time before everything happened, and then get energy from there into your soul to fill in whatever is missing, and do that again and again and again long enough so that you feel healed, and then the negative behaviors will just disappear, as long as you have good company and it's not re-triggered. So that is a mini masterclass in guilt and shame.
I was also thinking about, I'm not one for saying, this is good, this is bad. I really don't feel that way about a lot of things, but I do feel that way about child abuse. And so, one thing I've noticed is it's good to have some faith instead of no faith. It's really good to have some faith, right? Let's say if someone is fearing God, even though I don't recommend people fear God, right? God is not like that. God is a loving being. God is the ocean of love, He's the ocean of compassion, and I want people to connect with God that way. But let's say someone is fearing God and decided, oh, I'm a God fearing person, quote unquote, I'm not going to do that. I'd rather they be God fearing and not do that.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So I feel some faith is important. Like, like I feel many things we have dispensed with in our lives, right? We think everything is okay, immorality.
The modern world. Yeah.
Yeah, it's their
Yeah.
truth. Yeah, it's their truth. It's their this, yeah, everything is okay. But everything is not okay, right? Okay, you are a adult and you have done something else with a consenting adult. Okay, fine. Everything is okay. You are abusing children of doing something like weird like that, then everything is not okay. And so I'd rather they be God fearing, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so one of the things is that we have to see what did we throw out as a result of progress, right? Oh, we have progress, so everything is just okay. Yeah, right? This is fine, that is fine, this is fine, this behavior is fine, that behavior is fine, whatever is fine. And so we have to decide, no, not all behaviors are okay. And I shouldn't give in to certain behaviors. Whatever the reason, whatever the thing, don't give in to certain behaviors. Because there, in guilt and shame also, there has to be a scale, no?
Right.
From 0 being no guilt and shame to 10 being the highest guilt and shame. And everyone has a different sliding scale of guilt and shame. So see what we have done, and if it's somewhere here, don't worry about it, forget it, do whatever Michael is asking you to do, and you'll be fine. But if you're here, then doesn't matter. With doing this, without doing this, you need to stop.
Yeah, there's scale of everything, and I think one of the issues that makes this more complicated is that when we get triggered by guilt and shame, it actually triggers all the previous guilt and shame from all the other things we've done. So a lot of the time, someone might have done something fairly minor, but they're super guilt and shame around it. You think, well, why are they so caught up in this? But it's because it's triggering the same energy of guilt and shame that's from unresolved previous guilt and shame they didn't look at all the previous times, and now it comes back in a big package. And so this is why it's such a heavy thing, and
it is. It's a very light topic, but Michael, you did a great job. Thank you. I learned so much today.
Well, realistically, for anyone who's suffering from this, the best thing you can do is to study our free training, where you go into this in a lot more detail about how to get that spiritual power, get that free, that energy, that good vibration. Do the meditations that we have. We have loads of different meditations. There's no shortcut to this. We have to kind of really find out what we need and get our needs met. And everything will get better and better and better. So thank you for being here. Yay. Blessings.
For this wonderfully light topic.
We like a light topic, don't we?
It was your idea, Michael, and you did a wonderful job. Okay, pick a number or I pick a
27.
27, detachment. Seated on the lotus throne of detachment, you embody a remarkable equilibrium between loving and beautifully unattached. This unique stance of loving deeply while holding everything lightly endears you to God and the world around you.
That's beautiful. Yay. So thank you, Shireen, for your lovely presence.
Thank you for your presence.
Yeah. So talk soon, and for those listening, just check out the next video we have here for you based on this, and we will talk to you soon. Much love.